Thank you for that. I think that is very empowering. And I want to bring on Rabbi Mendel and Razi Rubin to join the conversation now. For those that do not know Rabbi Mendel and Razi, they've been the directors at Shabbos House, Chabad Student Center here at the University of Albany, and they've been at this role for more than 25 years. They do tremendous programming. Their Friday night dinners are legendary, but I think what they would say is the most important thing that they've done is they mentor hundreds of thousands of students and alumni. And I can't imagine since October 7th, the amount of conversations that have taken place between students, alumni, parents. I'm sure the phone is ringing off the hook with concerned parents. So I would like to ask a question to both you, Eric, and Rabbi Mendel and Razi. We're going to open this up. There's several people sent in questions in advance, and I think hearing from both of you will share different perspectives, and everybody will be able to gain from that. So the first question that came in was in regards to, I want to read it so I get it proper. Have you seen any significant increase or impact to Jewish students as it pertains to their Jewish identity? That is, do they see them identify more strongly or less so with their identity? I know, Eric, you just mentioned what they should do, what students can do, but in reality, what have we seen so far since October 7th? And Rabbi Mendel, would you like to start off with this one?
I want to thank Rabbi and Razi for what you do. It's incredibly important work. So I just want to thank you. And I defer.
Before I get to the question, I just want to reinforce some things that Dr. Mandel said. First of all, it is true that I think we have a lot of friends out there, more than we realize. I think there's a lot of people who are sympathetic, but Dr. Mandel is right. The depth of that is not always deep enough. And, they don't speak up enough, and that could be very frustrating for students. The other thing is there is a very vocal minority. There's no question about that. I will also echo what he said about the oppressor business, intersectionality. It may have like an idealistic background, but the way it's been interpreted and the way it's been taught really feeds a lot of this anti-Israel stuff. And we've seen it before October 7th, but now it's been increased. And also, don't waste your time. We really believe in that in many ways and many levels, even in terms of protests. Just like on social media, you want to give them oxygen. On campus too. Whenever they had a protest, we had something else going on the other side of campus. We always did it, but we didn't want to become confrontational. We felt it was a waste of everybody's time. We're not convincing anybody in that group, in that vocal minority group. But anyways, just some thoughts. But now to the question about how have you seen Jewish identity?
So I have to say that we've seen actually a very big surge in like mitzvah observance and in like wanting to, belong with like. We had one student, we tried to reach out to her for the first 2 years of her college experience. And, we spoke on social media, but she didn't come. And then we met her like on October 9th. And we were like, so nice to see you. And she says, I really wish I would have come earlier. But now that I've, my friends that I thought were my friends they don't relate to me. I need to be with my people. And there were many, many students like that really needed to find a place where they felt at home, where they felt that people understood them, where they felt that, they had so much more in common with the Jewish students on campus and the students that were, part of our community. And they were seeking that safe space and that place where they belonged. And not only that, but they also started to take on many more observances. We looked at our window, a few days after October 7th, and we have a student, our old Chabad house is a student residence, and there were guys davening in talis and tefillin on the porch that they haven't really put on tefillin regularly. They were just praying out there in the morning, and they were not, very observant students. They were not students that we would have expected to see that from. And one guy jokingly said, he's our incoming president, he says, Rabbi, I put on more to fill in on students on campus than you have. And he's probably right, because, the students have done these like flash mobs where they get all the students to come, and, fraternity kids are coming to, express their Jewish identity. We've had pre-Shabbat candle lightings where students come, sing Israeli songs, light Shabbat candles. And the type of student that is coming to light Shabbat candles is not really what we would have seen before October 7th. There's a big diversity. There's lots of students that really feel like they need that mitzvah connection. They need to come observe Shabbat more. They're seeking meaning. They want to start coming to classes to learn more. We're seeing a lot of that. Definitely, definitely.
I'll just add a little interesting thing. It depends on the generation. Parents who call, especially from a distance, I want to add one more thing that's important to understand about our personal situation at UAlbany, is that there are campuses where there's actual violence. There's campuses where there's obstruction of buildings, or actual physical intimidation. That's something we haven't seen here. We had very limited incidents that even approach something like that. During the year, I have to say I was sometimes frustrated with administration for not taking a stronger stand or not taking a bigger position. But overall, in hindsight, I think they handled it pretty well, both in the tone to faculty. We haven't had faculty join the protests. We haven't not have had faculty intimidate students in that kind of way. We did go to another story, but we did go to one event that we felt was inappropriate, and we had a meeting with the dean and with the vice president. So I feel that they've handled it pretty okay. So whatever I'm going to say is actually coming from a place where I don't think there's physical concern. It may be very different on some campuses, but that's not something we've experienced here. But back to the question, I think parents call alarming. They see what's going on in the news. It's very intense. It's very frustrating. It's incredibly upsetting, and they're worried for their kids. And so many parents are encouraging their kids to stay home, not to associate Jewishly, not to hang around with the Jewish kids, not to wear a high necklace, not to wear an IDF sweatshirt, not to do anything like that. You know what I mean? And from the children, we're actually seeing from the students, obviously there's some students who I think are hunkering down a little bit, but many students in our situation have actually, this has bolstered their Jewish pride. This had made them feel like Regis that I have to be with my people. It strengthened their desire and necessity and interest in doing things Jewish. And Israel. And by the way, one of the things that we felt very important is to do a lot of smaller events on a regular basis, much more than our usual programming, that had Israel content, because it enabled students to feel connected on different levels, whether it was a fundraiser or bake sale on campus for one of the kibbutzim, or was a petting zoo here to recreate a kibbutz, or whether it was a class in Israel or a speaker. One of the survivors from October 7th when the Nova Festival came. Not all heavy events, some of it light. Students, by the way, it's very important. They're young. There is a level of concern, a level of tension. There's no question. But they also don't want to be turned into like a crisis situation. They want to live their lives, and they want to be able to enjoy Jewish life to the fullest. So that's just something I want to say. So I feel that the parents have a different approach than the students.
That's interesting that it's being in the situation, the students are sensing differently than the parents from afar who are just seeing from the media. And I think I'm curious, Eric, I think Rabbi Mandel and Reza, you would find, I'm sure all of Chabad on campus is finding the same experience that you are, that children, they're not children, students, young adults are becoming more involved Jewishly at Chabad. Now, Eric, you have a broader view, and I'm curious to hear your perspective and what you've seen from your visits at all campuses.
So I've spoken to 11 universities since October 7th. campuses, and I've been doing it for many years, for a couple of decades, a lot on campuses. It really depends upon the campus. When I was at Berkeley, it's one thing. At Harvard, it's one thing. Cornell, it's one thing. And those are usually very political campuses, Brown. But then I could be in Ithaca and go to Ithaca College, and it wasn't so bad. You go into the New York City schools, the Brooklyn College is a city college. It's really difficult. We don't have statistics at this point of how many more people, it's really anecdotal, have gravitated to their Jewish identity. My hope is that when we're able to look at it objectively, that many have come back. It's one of the things, there's very few benefits of anti-Semitism, but being attacked, and one of my friends is Judea Pearl, who writes to me, and Judea Pearl is the father of Daniel Pearl, who was beheaded. And he would always say, Eric, this is just Jew hatred. In one, whether we're talking about against Israel or the anti-Semitism, it's Jew hatred. And it does bring us together, that we have to come and support one another, and the Chabads are incredibly important. I just want to take this one degree of separation, because I keep mentioning anti-Semitism and I keep mentioning Jew hatred. One of the big things that must happen, and one of the things that I see on going in Congress and in state legislatures, is how do you define anti-Semitism? Because if you cannot define it, then you can't fight it. And so there's something called the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition that is part, and I don't want to get the terms wrong, because we have two things going on in Congress right now, where there's the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which says the IHRA definition should be used. And if you use that definition, that if you demonize Jews, calling them Nazis and things like that, or if you have a standard against Jews that you don't have against anybody else. For Israel, the United Nations is an anti-Semitic organization. Just look at the votes. Or if you say the Jewish people are not entitled to a nation state of their own, where everybody else in the world is, you're an anti-Semite. And if we don't have that, then we don't know how. If we don't know how to define it, then we don't know how to have consequences and then protect the children from their civil rights, the Title VI, which is things we need to give them protection of. So I'm a big proponent. I'll just tell you, this Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, and there's also the Countering Anti-Semitism Act, which is going to look for a national director of anti-Semitism, which is a little less important to me. The Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, if they did that, it passed the House. It's sitting languishing in the Senate. If anybody is a New York resident here, call Chuck Schumer, because it's up to him if he wants to bring this up. And he's a political animal. And if he wanted this to come up to be voted on, then it can. That is where the pressure valve is to get the IHRA definition to happen. And I just wanted to take this opportunity. I know we got a little off track there, but it's just so important. And I want to always give everybody something to do, on a campus, or what you could do with the Senate and things like that. So I'll give it back to you, honey.